again, everyone, and welcome to the 6th of December and the next window in our TooFatLardies Oddcast Advent Calendar for 2023. We all love war films. Well, perhaps apart from the recent Sir Ridley Scott film Napoleon, but don't worry, we're not going to go there. So, I was asked by Richard and Nick if I was to remake a classic war movie and the three of us were going to star in it, which characters would we play? And why would each of us be perfect for that role? I must confess, when Richard and Nick both asked me this, I did sort of think, how long do you want this recording to be? I've seen an awful lot of war films, and I like quite a few of them. But trying to sort of imagine the three of us in roles in each of the war films, that might take some time. So rather than find the perfect role for Richard or the ideal spot in a film for Nick, I thought what I'd do is probably think about three of my favourite war films, with the main contender being the last one. So I did think, first of all, about Lawrence of Arabia, a classic war film, an amazing piece of cinema. And I did think, of course, that I'd play quite a good Lawrence of Arabia, because in my time in Egypt, a while ago, admittedly, I did quite well on a camel. Camels are notoriously unpredictable and incredibly smelly, but I did have a whole week in Egypt going around the various sort of deserts on horseback and on a camel in the 1990s. And I do remember, out of all my friends, I managed the camel quite well. So that was one of the reasons that I thought I'd do quite well as Lawrence of Arabia. I sort of thought of Nick possibly as the Omar Sharif character. There's a great friendship about Nick, and I do think that various of his facial features might be improved by authentic Arabic dress. For Rich, who else but General Allenby himself, the Jack Hawkins character. I thought that Richard would be particularly good as a member of the elite of the British Army, probably slightly dismissive of the unusually fey and wayward character of T.E. Lawrence. So there we go, that's one possibility. Another possibility might be Dr. Strangelove. It's another war film. Yes, it is. You know it is. At least the ends. Spoiler alert. Just wait a moment in case nobody's seen this absolute classic. Spoiler alert, it does end with the start of a nuclear war, so I'm counting that as a war film. So I thought Nick would be perfect as Group Captain Lionel Mandrake, which is one of the characters Peter Sellers plays, especially as he's floundering around for the money for a Coca-Cola machine. Or maybe General Bat Guano, his accomplice. And I think Nick does a very passable and very good American accent. As for Richard, well, I think General Buck Turgidson would be ideal. The man who is so obsessed with superiority over the Ruskies that he doesn't like them seeing the big board in the war room. And what about myself? Well, I would be having had to arbitrate between Richard and Nick on many days. I'm like the Peter Sellers character, Merkin Muffley, the man who said that he would not go down in history as the greatest murderer since Adolf Hitler. I do sometimes feel that between the two of them, I am very much the image of President Merkin Muffley. And no, I'll not accept the fact that I could possibly ever consider myself as the role of Dr. Strangelove himself. Well, enough of that, because neither of those, much though I love both of those films, neither of those are the ones that I'd want to remake with Richard and Nick. No, I think the honour of that has to go to the remake by TooFatLardies of Spartacus. Yes. Well, obviously the Spartacus character has to be Richard. Yeah, well, he's a big chap, but obviously when everyone stands up at the end, I can well imagine many people saying, "I'm Spartacus," around Richard, maybe. I'm not so sure that he'd actually sit down. He'd probably want to take the credit for that, I imagine. But I thought he was perfect for Spartacus. Nick, of course, who else? But I think it's Batiatus, the Peter Ustinov character. He's one of my favourites in that film. He's an unlikely hero, but the scenes in which he brings out the very best wine, but in the small goblets, is just absolutely perfect for the role Nick would play. But what about myself? What would be the role for me? Well, I do like Italian food. I always think that I've got quite a good deep voice at times. Kind of like Toga's. Sounding a bit like Marcus Licinius Crassus, the Laurence Olivier character. Well, is that a little bit too ambitious for me? Don't worry everyone, I'm going nowhere near Parthia. Well, there we go. That's the end of those 3 wonderful films. Probably you'll never be able to watch any of them again after this Christmas Advent calendar recording. I do apologise for that, but it's all in the spirit of Christmas.